in Cleveland, Ohio. Her particular interests include the arts, reading, writing, traveling, languages, global issues, fashion, and good chocolate. I have a piece of Lindor up here for you. I believe that's good chocolate, so we'll ask that you wait till after lunch to eat that. Before Nayiri comes and shares with us, I'd like you to turn in your pew Bible to our text this morning. It's found in Luke's Gospel, chapter 9. That's found on page 1609 there in that pew Bible, beginning at verse 28. About 8 days after Jesus said this, he took Peter, John, and James with him and went up onto the mountain to pray. And he was praying. As he was praying, the appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became as bright as a flash of lightning. 2 men, Moses and Elijah, appeared in glorious splendor, talking with Jesus. They spoke about his departure, which he was about to bring to fulfillment at Jerusalem. Peter and his companions were very sleepy, but when they became fully awake, they saw his glory and the 2 men standing with him. As the men were leaving Jesus, Peter said to him, "Master, it is good for us to be here. Let us put up 3 shelters, one for you, one for Moses, and one for Elijah." He did not know what he was saying. While he was speaking, a cloud appeared and enveloped them, and they were afraid as they entered the cloud. A voice came from the cloud saying, "This is my son, whom I have chosen. Listen to him." When the voice had spoken, they found that Jesus was alone. The disciples kept this to themselves and told no one at that time what they had seen. May God add his blessing to the reading of his word. Nayiri, welcome to Zion United.
Thank you, Eli, and thank you all for the invitation, and thank you, Eric. I am just delighted to be here with you this morning at Zion UCC in North Canton. And this is the last Sunday of the year, and known as the Transfiguration Sunday. So the Living Water Association of Ohio Northeast and its 150 congregations join us this morning in spirit as I bring you greetings in the name of love, whom we call the Christ, from your covenant partner churches in the association, from Cleveland to Oberlin to Beloit and Strasburg, Ashtabula and Youngstown, with whom you share a journey and a story and a mission. Now, why the name Living Water? Did you know that the word Ohio means good river? Did you know that Cuyahoga River means crooked river? And did you know that Ashtabula means the river of fish? And so, hence, the Living Water name was born. Not only because of these words, but also because what better way to name ourselves but after our aspiration and after our calling. Living water, or water, is that out of which new life is born. We are born out of water, we are reborn in the water of baptism. Every morning we are refreshed by water. So water renews us, it endures, yet moves, it abides, yet courses through, and is always new. So I bring you greetings from this Living Water Association, from its leaders and ministry teams of this association, who work to provide resources and ministries to ensure the health and well-being of our congregations. And I thank you for the gifts and the resources you share with us, because without your financial gifts, without your human skills and talents, without your space, we cannot do the ministry of the association. Some of our meetings are held in this building, and we are grateful for your hospitality and for your open doors. So a bit of my story. As Eli mentioned, I am Armenian by ethnicity, and Armenians have been Christian since the year 301, when they accepted Christianity as our state religion. So now you can blame us for state religions. I grew up in the church in Aleppo, Syria. I lived in Beirut, Lebanon, and I grew up in Aleppo because after the genocide of the Armenians in 1915 by the Ottoman Turks, under Ottoman Empire. So most Armenians you'll ever meet are Orthodox by faith. But the Protestant church in which I grew up was birthed by American missionaries from the Board of Commissioners for Foreign Missions in the year 1845. And when Presbyterian and Congregational missionaries were sent to the Middle East to evangelize Muslims. Well, they couldn't really evangelize Muslims, so they evangelized those who were already Christian and created the Armenian Protestant Church. So the Congregationalists worked with the Armenians and created the Armenian Protestant Church. Presbyterians worked with the Arabs and created the Arab Protestant Church. So to this day, the Armenian Protestant Church is connected, or is a mission partner of the United Church of Christ, and Arab Protestants are a mission partner of the Presbyterian Church, USA. So our story goes back. You and I, although miles apart, have been connected through the body of Christ, the global church. And the global church has no geographical boundaries. And I do believe that I have the best job in the world, because every Sunday I get to worship with one of our 150 congregations, and every Sunday I am surprised by the faithfulness of our churches, by our ministries, even as we struggle to figure out how to be church in this ever increasingly fast-changing 21st century world. How do we live and survive in a world that feels volatile and unstable, turbulent and chaotic? How do we deal with constant change and ceaseless movement? How do we live today in this century? For you see, movement is life. And life is living. Life, by definition, is movement, and anything that does not move is usually pronounced dead. Now think with me for a moment of all the movements that are happening in your own body right now, even as we speak. Our hearts are beating, our bloods are coursing, the brain is imagining, the stomach is digesting. Even without our awareness, if these all stop moving, we would be pronounced dead. So anything that does not move is lifeless. And even the most so-called permanent and stable thing in life moves and changes form. Consider the permanence of the rock. Large, sturdy, luring mountains that last eons in the times of the universe, and they signify permanence and stability, yet they are in constant movement, albeit slow. They change shape and form. They are reshaped by the wind and the sun and the rain. The rock is lasting and enduring, but is not unchanging. And one can say the same about water or air or the elements of life, always moving, coursing, flowing. Water itself changes form from ice and cloud to rain and snow, enduring and abiding yet in motion. is this why Jesus is also our living water, our rock, and the Holy Spirit is our wind, our breath, our air. And isn't it true that we experience God also through movement, through inspiration, something stirring within us, often awakening us, loving us? The static, stationary, immobile, and unmoving God is a dead God who cannot be experienced. God who can be experienced is a God of movement. God is present and eternal, lasting and enduring, but like all living things, God is also moving and speaking, inspiring and glowing, coursing through us, living and recreating. So in our reading today, we learned about movement and transformation, transfiguration, as Jesus changes form. Jesus, Peter, James, and John are up on the mountain. Jesus' face shines. He is now in shiny white robe. Elijah and Moses, who did not have normal deaths, but simply ascended to heaven, appear. And everyone present hears God saying, "This is my beloved Son, with whom I am pleased." These are the same words uttered during Jesus' baptism, perhaps a confirmation that baptism, too, is an experience of rebirth and transformation. So as such, I believe the story can be understood as a metaphor for our own experiences of movement, transition, and transformation. Our own journeys from the valley to the mountaintop and back again. For you see, our lives are always journeys through valleys and mountaintops. Now, the biblical story is full of this phenomenon. Where the old passes, the new comes. Remember Noah and the ark? The whole earth is destroyed, every life form wiped out, only to come back to life through the promise of the rainbow. Remember the Israelites in exile in Egypt, in a foreign land, oppressed and burdened. They venture out in Exodus only to journey for 40 years to the promised land and to liberation. And even the most misunderstood book of Revelation does not end with an end, but ends with a new heaven and new earth that has no end. And of course, Jesus' own story moves from horrifying crucifixion, sorrow, and death to an amazing resurrection, rebirth, and a new beginning, transformation. See, these kinds of transformational stories are not only at the core of our Christian faith, but they are also at the heart of most of the religions of the world. Buddhism, for example, is transforming or journeying through ignorance to enlightenment and compassion. Taoism is a process from ego to freedom. Hinduism is a path from separation to oneness. Islam is moving from self-centeredness to surrender. Baha'i is about moving from the shadows to a pure, kind, and radiant heart. And then we see the same theme of transformation, transition, in folk stories or mythical stories or fairy tales. Remember the Sleeping Beauty? She sleeps for 7 years only to come back to life, transformed by love. Snow White also, Greek mythology, has many of the same narratives. So life is movement, and we too are movement because we are living and alive. But that is not all. The title of this sermon today is borrowed from Devashish Murda, who suggests that the purpose of life, or the mission of life, is to transform transcend, and transpire. So it struck me that transformation is good, but not enough. We also need to learn to transcend the everyday, the mundane moments of life and this world of violence. For we get discouraged. We despair when life is difficult and obstacles are many. When we are overwhelmed and feel as if we cannot take one more step forward or handle one more crisis. But miraculously turn things around, a light at the end of the tunnel becomes visible, new possibilities present themselves, and God somehow touches our lives in some unexpected way and lifts us up, helping us transcend the pain and the sorrow, healing it as we walk through it. So transpiring and rising up from sorrow, grief, and loss, we find healing a little at a time, discovering that our broken hearts are being put back together, and we can start over and again transformed. So what about the church? 200 years ago, the world was a different place. The church was part of the dominant culture. There were not many unchurched people in this country, or those of other faiths. The church was part of society, and it influenced society. Its mission was in far-off lands where missionaries and money were sent. Now today, the church is no longer part of the dominant culture. Unchurched people are our friends, and those of other faiths are our neighbors. The church's influence on society is fading. The mission field is not far away, but right in our backyard. And the progressive church's presence and message are increasingly countercultural, calling us to compassion and love in a world that's volatile and unpredictable, calling us to peaceful relationships in a world that is antagonistic and hostile. And the church is no longer a community where everyone believes the same or thinks the same. These are huge shifts and movements in the church. Now, in his book, The Future of Faith, theologian Harvey Cox suggests that the church has gone or has transformed through three specific ages. First age, he suggests, is the age of faith, when the early church people were known as the people of the way because they followed the way of Jesus. So that was the path of faith. The second age, he suggests, was the age of belief, when the church became a formal institution, even part of the state, and it turned faith into a belief system, where creeds and faith statements were written so that the faithful had to subscribe to them, so that everyone believed the same. The third age, he suggests, is the age of spirit, and we are living in it today, where our spiritual hunger, our deepest seeking and longing for the divine, for connection, for community, express themselves in our quest for spiritual nurture, for something deeper, for something beyond, something of a mystery, transcending the messiness of the day. Today we want to be fed in spirit. We want to experience God, not just talk about God. We want to find meaning in our lives. We want to feel the movement within us. We want to share our gifts and change the world. And what does that mean for us today? I will share that in a story. A long time ago, a little tree was growing in the forest. As the tree grew, it began to notice the wide expanse of the universe. The sky above its head, the the white clouds moving across. Its vastness spoke to him of permanence and eternity, so the tree longed to live forever and touch eternity. So one day a forester happened to pass by who noticed that the tree was not particularly happy. "What's the matter?" asked the man. "What troubles you?" The tree said, "Well, I would like to live forever, like the clouds and like the sun and the skies." Perhaps you shall, said the man. Some times passed, and the forester came again and asked the tree, "Do you still want to live forever?" "Oh, yes, I do, said the tree. "I think I can help," said the forester. "But first, you have to give me permission to cut you down." The tree was aghast. "I want to live forever and you want to kill me?" it said. "I know it sounds crazy," said the forester, "but if you trust me, I promise your desire will be fulfilled." So after much thought, the tree gave consent. The forester came with his axe, the tree was felled, its sap of life streamed away, its wood was sliced into strips. The strips were planed and shaped and smothered in layers of varnish. The tree screamed in anguish. It surrendered to the hands of the violin maker. All dreams of forever vanished. So for many years, the violin lay idle in a closet. But one day, the violin was gently lifted from its case, caressed by loving hands. It held its breath in disbelief and quivered as the bow crossed its strings. The quivering turned into pure sound, music, and harmony, and it reminded it of the wind that rustled the leaves and shaped eternity in the sky. "My wood has turned into music," said the tree. The forester spoke the truth. "I can live forever by making music." I believe this is a story about transforming, transcending, and transpiring. It is a story of the changing yet enduring, of the moving yet abiding and the lasting. And especially, it is a story about church today. The church today is living in a world where we hear the call to change, to shift, to transform, to reshape.